Remember when you told me.
Welcome, everyone, to the River's Edge. Today, I have the very exciting pleasure of interviewing James Sinclair. He's the executive producer and director of the movie What If, the movie. And back in 2009, it was released. And then he has a new movie out this year in 2020 called The Grand Self. And it's all about everything that I love, talking about the human potential. You were an infinite spiritual being living in this human body and everything that we can do. And I'm just so excited you're on here. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you.
I am too. So I have so many questions. I don't even know where to begin, but I want to hear how because you guys started really early on. And I believe you said it was 17 years old when you first had your experience, you're feeling really connected to God. Would you say that's the right way to say it?
Yeah, that's a good
and
way
you
to
realize,
say it.
And would you say that was when you first realized the illusion that we're all human beings, we're spiritual beings in a human body having an experience, or how would you say that?
Yeah, you know what? I started changing and elevating my thoughts, right? And I changed everything in my life, kind of like The Secret movie style, you know? And it's like manifested the girl I wanted and manifested, you know, just everything became easy. I became an A student, studied less. It was just like really flowy. But in that experience of elevating my thoughts, something greater happened. And that's where I just had this awareness. I just awakened even beyond that into this awareness that we're all connected to this grand self, this grand cosmic self that is within us, all around us. And I became aware that it's always been there. But in my lower vibrational thinking, you know, I had no awareness of it, no conscious awareness at all.
No conscious awareness that you had a higher self that existed, that you could be connected to and have. And so that happened at 17.
Yeah, 16 going on 17, and it lasted for about a year, and it was profound. I mean, it wasn't just a day or two.
It's a long time.
Yeah, it was living in the state of being of like knowing that my source and I are one. There, even to say that my source and I sounds separate, but it's like we were one. And to become aware that this presence was always loving me, and I had no idea. You know, it was just like I was so stuck in the mundaneness of life and the poor self-image I had and the low vibrational thoughts that I was thinking that I was covering it up. And then I started to see that this light is in everything. It's in leaves, it's in the trees, it's actually in the furniture, you know?
Yeah.
And it was like, and those were wild realizations, you know, because it was like I thought matter was matter, mass was mass. I had no idea, you know. I wasn't brilliant science student. So I didn't know at that time everything's all energy and molecules and atoms, you know. And then of course I started seeing it in everyone. And it was like, but most people go through their life ignoring it because they're not aware that this incredible higher self is there all the time knocking at our door.
Right. So those of you watching who aren't aware, I think everyone probably is by now, but I do know a lot of people aren't very spiritual, and we are infinite spiritual beings playing a role as a human being on this planet Earth right now. And we have so much potential that is untapped and no one even knows. And so James, to have that at 16 years old is really huge, because I was 30 something, mid 30s. I can't remember the exact age, but before I ever started really realizing the potential, and I certainly haven't tapped into my potential by any means, but God, 16 years old is pretty amazing to have it happen that early. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, and you know, and during that time I downloaded all of these great truths that I didn't read anywhere else, you know, and that we're all connected to this source that I could see and feel, and also that we make everything up. Everything in our lives that we call reality or just how the world is or facts is actually only a fact based on reflecting our deeper beliefs. Like whatever we believe about ourselves in life, that fact is going to show up in life. So at one point, you know, in our history, you went to a doctor with scurvy and he's like, it's incurable, you're going to die, you know. And it's like, and then later they found out it was a vitamin C deficiency, and now nobody dies of scurvy. And right now, you know, people are like, you have to age, you have to die. And I could see that we interfere with this incredible life force that's flowing through us, through our habitual thoughts and feelings about ourselves and life, our limiting programs that we learn. And so, and I could see that, man, if we can just let go of that resistance, there's nothing even we have to do other than just let go of the resistance, and all of this perfection will flow through us. And yeah, it was just such a profound time.
It is so true. It's so it seems so simple. Like, well, just change your beliefs. What's your problem? And everything will be great.
Yeah.
Just become one with God. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
But it's easier said than done. So I have a question for you on that. I'm trying to figure out how to word it. So we're on this timeline, the Earth going from 3D to 4D to 5D, right? We're all shifting, humanity's shifting, going into the oneness. Do you think that there's a set timeline where we're not meant to achieve that God status? That's probably not the right way to say it. Be in complete oneness, where it's just not time yet, we're not ready? Or what, do you think that's related?
You know, my feeling on that is, that's a good question. My feeling is that we're all such powerful creators that we're all creating our own timelines. You know, I mean, for many people, they're living in joy and bliss and freedom, and they've already followed their intuition, and they're living in sustainable, you know, thriving, wealthy communities where they're producing their own food without sprays, and you know, all of these amazing things are happening. And then for other people, you know, they're panicking and they're going to their doctor, they're having panic attacks because it feels like such an intense time. And so I think the difference is, I think we're all ready for it. I think it's just, you know, and it is such a big question that you ask. And I think, and it's something I get asked a lot. And I think to realize that, you know, is people are like, what's happening? It's just so intense. And I think there's more light as we're all awakening. And as we're awakening, what happens is when the light is strong, it reflects, it shows us, it shines in the dark corners. So it shows us our limiting beliefs. And so a lot of people say life is hard, it's hitting me in the face, or these are challenging times. It's like, actually, it's incredible times. And the reason that it's coming up, and you know, if people understand this, I think it's so important and so helpful that it's like, it's an opportunity, because our higher self, our source, wants us to overcome that. So whatever comes up, if it's financial challenges, if it's relationship, whatever that emotional charge is that's going on, our higher self wants us to be free of that, and it's an opportunity to shift. But if you don't know that, it can just feel like manic, or or like you're going crazy, or what's wrong with me? And it's like,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just a great opportunity.
And physical too, right? I mean, it manifests into physical ailments. If you don't work on it emotionally, then you become sick.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's not fun for anyone. So I have more questions on that, but I want to get moving on to, so it only lasted 1 year when you were 17. And then what, so can you describe what the situation was that before going in, your beliefs, and then what changed? And then like you had a belief, well, I don't know what your belief was before going in, and then you realized that you were connected with God.
Yeah, well, you know, just the process of raising my thoughts and changing how I felt about myself, changing my self-image, just aligned me with source energy. And I was like, and that's why I had all those awakenings and the awareness. And literally, it was like, for me, it was euphoria. It was bliss. It was incredible. And then, you know, I got to the point where I started manifesting instantly. And, you know, I was downloading all this information that we can teleport and we can do all these things. And anyways, but for me, I ended up manifesting instantly. And that was incredible. I felt all this power, you know.
Give me an example. Give me an example of what you manifested.
Well, you know what? It was actually a funny example, because it was I was in high school, and so it was my car, and it needed brakes. And I took it into the garage, and they're like, yeah, you need all this. It was really expensive, whatever. And I just remember, it's like, you know what? I changed everything in my life with my thoughts. And it's like, if my brakes are atoms and all this sort of stuff, you know, I can do it with my mind. And so I set that intention, and then I went to my car, and it was always making this noise for the brakes because it needed to get done. And I started driving for quite a while, and I realized, whoa, the sound is gone. It's like my brakes are fixed, they're totally fixed. But my analytical mind was like, are they really fixed, or they just, you know, whatever.
Right.
So I took it into the same garage, and they hoisted it up on the garage. And the guy started yelling at me, and I was just a kid. And he said, why would you waste our time when you got your brakes totally redone and fixed somewhere else? Why would you do that to us? And he was just so angry. And I was like, you know, I couldn't tell him that I manifested it in my mind.
You're like, I manifested it.
Okay, I didn't know. And he's like, he just thought I was a big liar and got it fixed at another shop, which I did not. So I felt like, wow, there really is no limit. And right in that space, Kelly, you know, looking at it from this perspective now, I see it differently, that I was actually going to my next level, but I didn't know that. So I felt this power, but with that sense of power, I felt also this fear. This fear was like, it's not safe to be this powerful. This does not feel safe. And I just started to go into fear, and then I started going into doubt, and then I started spiraling down. And then I felt like I was completely lost. And I see now that it was actually my unconscious beliefs that were surfacing, but I didn't know that. I didn't have that knowledge. I just was frightened, and I just focused on the fear. And I was like, I don't want to be this powerful. I don't know what it is. And then, you know, later as the movie and the story unfolds, you know, I've had so many experiences where I realize now that, like, the soul we come in with, you know, also has had other lives, you know, and every religion, except for some branches of Christianity, you know, believes in reincarnation. Early Christianity did, when it was Gnosticism and the mystery schools. But then when the attack on free thinking happened, they removed that from Christianity. But yeah, so, you know, for me, it was just very, very interesting to realize that, wow, at 17, you know, I let go of that experience because I was actually scared that I'd be tortured. And that's what happened to me in a past life. And so very interesting. And so taking that knowledge, I was able to, you know, realize that it's like, wow, I didn't have to let it go. If I didn't have to let it go, you know. And so anyways, and the more I started to clear, this is the beauty, right? And you know this, the more we clear, the more that light that we are, that higher self, the presence, just is allowed to automatically shine through, you know? And that just happens, like when we're just not in resistance. And the challenge is we're born into what we're told is normal, and people are living in resistance in a disconnected state, and we're taught that it's normal. It's normal to get colds a couple times a year. It's normal to get sick, and you know what, you're gonna age, you're gonna die. And then we have hospitals, we have morgues. What if all of that is a reflection of our deepest beliefs? And that's what I discovered.
And this year with the pandemic fear mongering constant, so people buy into that. They live in fear and they create illness. So it's crazy happening this year.
Yeah.
But so how long? So you were 17. How old were you when you made the movie? What If the movie?
How old was I?
Like how much longer past the 17 years old?
You know what? That was more than 10 years.
So I'm just trying to get in my head, like, what were you thinking, the process between your first awakening and then for it lasted a year, and then you went how long, and then you learned a lot more obviously in the process, and you decided, I'm going to make a documentary about it, about the subconscious mind.
Yeah. And I kind of I wasn't ready to share my own story at the time of What If. And also, like, I really wanted to assemble this expert panel, right? Because it was really about—
You got some good ones.
Yeah, about the message that we're all, you know, limitless, like, and this is who we really are, you know? And then not just someone saying that, a regular person saying that, but an expert panel that could actually validate that scientifically. And you know, like Bruce Lipton, you know, the biology of beliefs is such an important science and research that he's done for the world, you know. And I mean, he's been researching stem cells for over 40 years, you know. But his book Biology of Belief and what he shared in the movie, you know, illustrates so clearly now, you know, that it's like before it was kind of like a little new agey or metaphysical. It's like just focus on what you want to have in your life, and voila, you know. And then it's like, but Bruce really brought the science that it's like, even in a matter of seconds, the minute you start changing your thoughts and feelings, that it's completely changing everything in your body, you know. It's creating a more coherent signal between your heart and your brain, and when that happens, you're actually, you know, releasing neuropeptides, you know, chemical messengers, hormones. And so all of a sudden you're releasing dopamine, you're releasing this whole chemistry in your brain that's really different. And then, you know, he gets into, you actually even have the power to switch on and off your genes. And, you know, it was like before, and you know, that's epigenetic control. And before that, people thought we're victims of our genes, you know? And he's like, no, it's like something is switching on the genes, you know, and your genes are playing a part, but there's something above that, and that's epigenetic control, and that's our mind. And so, you know, and for me too, so mind-blowing, because the second we do that, you see the changes, you know. So you start feeling like, what would it be like to really, you know, love myself and others and be in gratitude? Instantly, you're changing, and the whole universe is moving. But the challenge is that, you know, like you brought up earlier too, easier said than done. The challenge is most people don't stay there, you know? So in the whole universe, your chemistry is changing. But then you go back into your predominant state of being, which for most people is fear, anxiety, depression.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a tough one to get out of. So real quick on the movie, did you interview all of those guys? Did you ask them to say, hey, I'm doing this documentary, would you be a part of it? And you go interview them, or how did that work?
Yeah, I did. In the second movie, you know, I interviewed most people, and then we sent a crew out on a couple because we were just so overloaded. And even a couple, you know, in today's technology, I was able to zoom in, and we didn't do the interview through Zoom. We had a camera crew. But they put you know, the laptop right beside the camera, so I was like as if I was there. You know,
and the 2020 and the Grand Self movie, you mean?
yeah.
So I gotta say,
the movie, I met with everyone in person, and yeah.
I love that. It must have been so exciting because you've gone to this journey and you're sharing your story, and then to get to meet all the people that are doing all this scientific work. It's so fun.
It really was. We went to Bruce Lipton's house, and you know,
he lives down the street from me.
What's that?
He lives down the street from me.
Ah, does he really? Oh, cool.
20 minutes away.
Cool. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, no, it was really funny because I really envisioned, when I first envisioned What If the movie, Bruce Lipton has to be in it. It was just like, and so, you know, we called him and talked to his manager, which was his wife, and they turned us down. And she said, you know, the reason is Bruce would want to do this, but we're just so busy. And it's just he's saying yes to everything. We just have to draw the line somewhere. I'm sorry, that has to be with you. And I said, can you just give me 10 minutes with Bruce? Because I'm not so sure I want to make this movie without him. And I talked to Bruce for 10 minutes. We really aligned. And, you know, he's just like, I have to do this movie. I have to do it. And he's like, come to my house. And I was like, so grateful, you know?
Oh, that's so exciting. And was he living here in Boulder Creek in California? Do you remember?
No, he was in California, but we were in Santa Cruz or San Jose.
Oh, yeah.
Just outside of,
Yeah, that's where Boulder Creek is.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I guess
Santa
that's
Cruz.
yeah. Yeah, it was a while ago.
But that was 2008 when you were making it, right?
Yeah.
And so you made that movie, and then there's a 12-year gap between when you made the next one. So what happened between in those times?
Yeah. Well, actually, we made a few other movies in between time, but we did them for charities, and it was like, um, we're very selective with what we take on for productions. But we did these for people. But yeah, what if the movie and this movie? This was like my passion projects, and so and interestingly enough, we started shooting the Grand Self movie in I think 2013, a couple of years after I left Fiji.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, we started shooting. Went to India, and that was one of the ashrams we were at there, and then we went to another ashram, and then the journey just kind of evolved, and then we just kept rolling camera, and the movie was in the making for years.
Oh wow. So I'm trying to think if you aged any. I don't remember you. You had highlighted hair and right? Or was that the first movie? Your hair was really light in one of them.
Yeah, probably the first.
I watched them both, but I prefer the second one only because you're so honest and you're so humble and you just put it all out there because people can relate to how you were feeling. So thank you for doing that because that's going to help a lot of people. I'm sure it already has.
Well, thank you so much. And I think the feedback we're getting, that's where they're really relating to the movie is, and especially how the movie starts off with a heartbreak. And it's like, we all get it. We've all been there. And it's like, there's a saying in the Course in Miracles, we're never upset for the reason we think. And so it's like, even a heartbreak, we're actually upset for what it triggers within us, right? And that's what we depicted in the movie. But Kelly, it's funny. Part of why the movie took so long, for one, the journey, but for two is my own resistance. I didn't feel I wanted to be that vulnerable, to be honest, and
it's
really
scary.
really open, that way, right? Because it's like, it's a part of you that normally you try to kind of protect, and it's just like, oh, everything's wonderful, and everybody does a Facebook, nobody shows their bad pictures on Facebook, and me neither. And so it's like, do I really want to go there and open myself? But is what drove me was like, the thing that was so hard for me is that I felt like this is just who I am, and you can't change it. It's just who you are. And why do other people seem to be more successful and happy, and their life is working, as teenagers, whatever? And why do I have to hate myself? Why do I have to just not like anything about myself? Why do I struggle in school? Why do my parents and friends reflect horrible things back to me at that time, also good. But so I felt so stuck. And then when I had that awakening, I realized, wow, that's not who I am. We are not our thoughts. We're not our feelings. We're not our self-image. We're all so magnificent. And it was like, it's a lie. And then most people are living this lie. They really are. And so that's what drove me to do the movie and kind of get over my own, vulnerabilities.
You did an awesome job. I loved it because had you not been so vulnerable and just been so honest and forthright, it would not have been nearly as powerful, as impactful.
Thank you.
It was amazing. I loved it. And I can resonate and relate to, and I so many people can when they watch it, and they may not go announce to the world, oh, I felt just like he did, but they feel it inside, and it changes a person. It helps them realize they're not alone.
Yeah. And I think it also sometimes, you really have to be honest with yourself if you want to change. Like the first step, I feel is to become consciously aware of what you've been unconsciously thinking. And so for a lot of people, that can feel uncomfortable or a little triggering, because if the habit is, most people don't even want to be with themselves, and they always want to be out clubbing or, on the phone or social media or something, anything, but to be alone with yourself. And the question is why? And it's like, what's wrong? And it's like, a lot of people don't want to, and I didn't either before, you didn't want to really feel what you feel about yourself, because it for most of it's painful. But the thing is, if you distract yourself your whole life that way, that pattern in you, which is just a subconscious pattern of self-hatred and self-denial, all this sort of stuff, self-doubt, it's going to continue to run your whole life. And there's going to come a time, you know, where you'll probably be faced with that or die of it. I mean, it's really true. Or it will, you know, if that pattern continues, we talked earlier, right? It's going to show up in your body. And, you know, and then a lot of people are still unconscious, choose to be unconscious. Oh, doctor says I have cancer. I don't know what happens, you know? And it's like, wow, we're so in the habit of blaming everything and not taking responsibility. So, but when we do, and we realize, wow, okay, this is how I think about myself and feel about myself. And it's not comfortable, but I can realize that, you know, wow, I took this on innocently. Like, you know, in the first movie, Bruce Lipton says 0 to 6, we're like sponges, the subconscious mind, whatever was said, you know, it's like, Kelly, you know, you're a bad person or you deserve punishment. That goes in as a direct download to our subconscious mind. It doesn't matter what age you are later, if that's still there, that's still running, you know? So, so the empowering thing is that once you become aware of it, you can change it. And then everything in your life changes to reflect that. And I think that's the time we're in now. We're waking up and it's like, wow, we've created this. What do we want to create now?
Yeah, it's a perfect timing too with all the craziness in the world. And getting back real quick to when people want to change their feelings about themselves. So a lot of people think that something traumatic has to happen in life in childhood for them to have something more, this stems from this. And it's not really at all. You can just be ignored by your family pretty much your whole life. Nothing really mean or anything, but you can grow up feeling like very unimportant and unvalued in life. That's just an example. But it doesn't have to be anything traumatic. It just, you grew up with, you live what you learn, what you live, right? Or you live what you learn, and how you've been treated in life. So changing a belief though, so first step, just like you said, is becoming aware, right? If you're not conscious of it and aware of it, then you're never going to change it.
Yeah.
So can you walk us through the steps of changing a belief? First, awareness is number one.
Yeah. So awareness is number one. And I just want to comment too, you know, that's such an important point that you said. And you're right. It doesn't have to, a lot of people feel, I didn't have a majorly traumatic childhood. It can be a simple thing that you just felt unloved. And you made a conclusion about yourself that you're unlovable. And that will operate your whole life until you update it, you know, until you update that program. So yeah, so number one, become consciously aware of what you've been unconsciously thinking about. And, you know, throughout the journey of the movie in this day and age, you know, we found incredible consciousness technologies, like getting into the gamma brainwave state, which is an optimal state to reprogram your subconscious beliefs very, very quickly. And we've had incredible examples of that and results, like instant results.
Does that really work?
What's that?
The 90 seconds, is it really like 90, that one? Is that what you?
Yeah. You know, I would say it can be. Like for everyone, it's different, you know? I mean, we were in BC in another province. This lady was in pain for, she said 20 or 30 years. And you know, there's a posture involved with this, to go into the whole brain posture. She was crying to get into it. And fortunately, we were in a room full of people that knew her. And she was just constant pain, like just always crying, always complaining, according to people in the room and her. And then, but we got to the core belief of what was causing that. And she went into the gamma posture, and literally within 2 or 3 minutes in that case, she came out pain-free, completely pain-free, to the point where she said, well, you know, the last 10 years I wasn't really in too much pain, but the people in the room almost attacked her that knew her, and they said, you know, and we all just saw her crying and taking forever to get into the pose. And then I checked in with her after a year, after 2 years, and then I think after 4 years was the longest check-in, and still pain-free. And so, you know, when we get to the root cause, it can be that quick. For, you know, some things, for the outside to change that quickly, sometimes there's a forest of beliefs to kind of get through, you know, and it's usually around you know, fears. And another great consciousness technology is inner resonance technology, which is really next level, because it pretty much bypasses the conscious rational mind, the logical mind, and works on the superconscious level. But it's like you just open yourself to spirit. And when you open yourself to spirit and you're on the super conscious level, you know, you transcend time and space. And it's just like these limiting beliefs just shift effortlessly. And so having said all that, you know, and I'm for whatever works, you know, I'm not attached to any technique. You know, we put the most powerful that I found in the movie, and that worked really well for me and my clients and friends and family. And, but, you know, what we find is the power is always in the present moment. So it's like, how do you want to be thinking and feeling about yourself? Once you've uncovered, it's like, wow, I don't like myself, or, you know, I don't feel worthy. Then it's not just about feeling worthy in your meditations, it's about feeling worthy every moment, because that predominant state of being is what's regulating everything in your life, your biology and every atom around your life, which means every circumstance, situation, and event in your life.
It seems like something like that, that's so deep rooted, I'm not worthy, would be, you would have to build up to it, like start doing things where it made you feel worthy. And then over time, you build up your value, your sense of value. But you're saying like in the gamma mindset, or the I forget what the other one was called.
IRT, the inner resonance technology. Yeah.
I've never heard of that one, but I mean, that's how I feel like when I meditate, I'm talking to spirit directly, and I release limiting beliefs I ask to, or I try to do that, but it doesn't happen in 90 seconds. So maybe I'm doing something wrong, but so you don't have.
Well, and you know what? I feel that yes, that you can be free of that belief in 90 seconds. And then it's like, where are you going to place your focus, you know, your thoughts and feelings in the future, you know? So, because we can take on limiting beliefs again. I mean, it's harder to, you know, because we do have to be. It was easy when we were kids at 0 to 6 because we were sponges, you know. And now, you know, if somebody says you're not worthy, you're kind of like, wow, you know,
I know
you have more awareness. Like, what's going on with you, and why would you say that? I don't feel that about me, and I don't have to take that on, you know. Yeah.
It is. That's a tough one. So do you have a preference right now of which one? So like if someone said, I want to change my belief, how should I do this?
You know what, I always say, just in the bonus footage of the movie, we actually talk about the gamma, and we also talk about the IRT, the inner resonance technologies. And I usually just say, you know, take what resonates with you, whatever calls you, you know. There's, and you know, the easiest thing right now to do is do that process, become consciously aware of what you've been unconsciously thinking about. And a really easy way to do that is just take out a piece of paper anytime and write for a minute what you're thinking. Just that simple. Yeah.
Would you say it's a matter of observing it and then feeling it and letting it go? Do you have to, or do you not go into the feeling part of it? You just observe it and just let it go.
You know what? I think the process is so different, Kelly, for different people and at different times.
Okay.
There's times where, yes, like actually Frank Lobziger in our movie, you know, who talks a lot about the light body, you know, he has a beautiful book. And, you know, in the book that he talks about the welcome process. So no resistance, because if you resist too, right, you're giving energy to what you're resisting. So if you're resisting, it's like, no, I don't want to feel this way. You're actually creating it more in your life. So he has a beautiful process of just so simple, just welcoming, how are you feeling right now? And it's like, is it okay to feel, you know, I feel anxious. Is it okay to feel anxious? Yeah, it's okay. And if it's not okay, then say, no, it's not okay. And then you can ask a question, you know, is it okay to not, for it not to be okay to feel anxious? Yeah, so you always kind of get to a yes, and you kind of neutralize it, you know? And then you can kind of go in, it's like, okay, why am I feeling anxious? What's going on? It's just like, you know, paying attention to yourself. And
you do go into the why.
Yeah, often I do. And you can uncover, it's like, I feel anxious because, like, for me, whatever is going on in my life, Kelly, I always, if there's something that I have an emotional charge on, then I know it's me, it's a trigger. If I can, you know, lots of things goes on that happen in your life, but there's no charge. There's just kind of love. Like you see somebody, you know, fall on the street in front of you and you help them, or you just, you know, there's no charge. But if you have a charge, then that's a reflection of you. So I always go inward, and it's like, what part of me, is creating that charge, and is creating this experience in my life. And there's always an answer. And now with IRT, it kind of bypasses any kind of really even introspection. It just kind of is like, it aligns you with your spirit. Your spirit knows where you've come from. Your spirit knows all of the programming. It's like, let's just move it. So it's a very interesting process, so, and they're different.
And would you say you're meditating when you're doing IRT, when you connect with spirit?
Yeah, I think so. I think
getting quiet.
I think the true meaning of meditation is to become aware of. So a lot of people say become aware of what we're thinking, and a lot of people say become aware of who we really are. And I think both are accurate, but the second one really resonates. And when we're becoming aware of who we really are, we're entering that state of thought and feeling and state of being and vibration. So we're actually embodying that, and in a meditation. And throughout the day, which is actually a meditation, we're meditating all the time. It's just like prayer. The true meaning of prayer is our thoughts and feelings. It's like, it's not getting on our knees and begging for something, for some entity outside of us. It's like those prayers never answered. And so, but how we're answered all the time is based on our vibration. So, and that's where I always get into, what are we feeling right now in this moment? Because this moment is creating our next moment, it's creating our future. And so, if we're not in harmony with our source, and to me that means, thinking thoughts about ourselves and our lives like our source thinks about us. Our source doesn't judge us. Our source adores us. Our source knows our magnificence. Our source knows that we're opulent, abundant. And then we have all of these limiting beliefs that money is scarce, and no, I don't deserve love. I don't deserve that much love. And this is what impedes our natural flow.
I know, it's so crazy, because we have this ability, we're these infinite beings and we have so much power, but we limit ourselves like to such a crazy amount. So I'm curious what kind of people you met in your journey to India and all the places you went. Like, did you meet any of those people that are 300 years old? I don't know if you personally met any of them, the ones who are ageless. And
I don't think I have, at least not officially. I mean, there's some people that were a little ambiguous, and you wonder. But officially, no. I've met people on the path of that, and people that have met people over the age of 300, even over the age of 800.
Leonard Ord said it in your movie. He said he did.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. He wrote a book, Breaking the Death Habit, after meeting 8 people over the age of 300. So yeah, but Kelly, I really hear you. And it's like the fundamentals are so simple, right? It's like we already are everything we want to be. We're connected to source energy. That's it. And we know that our thoughts and feelings, our state of being, is a regulator. It's either allowing or disallowing our experience. We can never be disconnected. We're always connected. That's what I saw at 17. But we can feel so disconnected from it, just like the sun behind the clouds. We know the sun's always there, but on a real cloudy day, our experience is it's gone. And that's what it feels like. And that's what most of us live in. So the fundamentals are so simple. And the rest of it that I find, it's really practice, and it's a skill that really, I think, the most important thing in the world, because you can study art or science or music, and you can really excel in it. But other areas in your life may not be so good. But if we master this, we can just there's nothing more important than how we're feeling and thinking right now, this moment, and to build new habits. That's all it is. That's all a deep belief is. It's a thought we continue to think. And all an unconscious belief is, it's a thought that we continue to think, that we've thought so well that it's operating with little or with no conscious awareness. Just like when we drive across the city, sometimes we're like, how do we get here? And it's like, you've done it so many times, your subconscious was driving you. You were thinking about other things and on autopilot. And that's how most of us live our lives. 95% of the time is what Bruce Lipton says.
Oh my God, it's so true. You have to put focus on it. So you have to be very conscious of how you're feeling every day. and the actions you're taking. And it's like this, it can be overwhelming, right? It's like when you're first starting, just to be so aware. Like I started this, and I feel like I've always been a very aware person. I've been super into the psychology of humans and what makes people do what they do. I love that. But I started working with a coach in 2008, and she's the very spiritual being, and she's the one that taught me all of this other stuff about it. But I love the topic. It's so exciting. And I know that we can be ageless and live forever if we want, or however long. So that one video that you were watching, I forget which one it was, but I said, can't we live to be like 500? And they're like, well, no, maybe 150. I'm like, well, what's the difference?
Yeah.
Well,
you know, not only can we, my experience shows me, and you know, what I downloaded, what I've seen, and the people I've met, is not only can we, but that it's actually the most natural thing in the world, you know? And we've gone out, we've done groups, and it's just so simple, you know, and you know, just to ask yourself, is what we do in groups is just close your eyes and, you know, now think about, what does it feel like to you? And place your focus on your heart. What does it feel like for you to every year become weaker, more decrepit, falling apart, you know, losing memory faculty, all this sort of stuff. And it feels awful to everybody. I've never met anyone yet that says, that feels really good to me, you know? It feels awful to everybody, but we accept it without a cry. And then we ask the same thing, what does it feel like to be living in abundance and rejuvenation, and that every year you become stronger and you become better and younger and, you know, more awake and alert, and you're using more of your infinite potential, and everyone is just like, feels so good. But we've all fallen into this, you know, what we call the illusion of separation. We think it's normal, and it's not. And these are the times where, you know, the veil's coming down and we're realizing, oh yeah, it's like we were wrong. And thankfully.
Yeah, thankfully. Do you have tips for people if they want to get reconnected, they've lost their connection? Like, does diet play a role? The people you hang out with? I know those are external, but things that kind of help get the ball rolling.
Yeah, you know what? I think all of it has an influence to a certain degree. And I think all of it is a placebo at the same time. So in other words, like, does diet play a role? And it's like yes and no.
Did you believe it?
Yeah, based on our beliefs. I mean, we've seen the studies, you know, where it's just like people that are drinking the green smoothies every day.
So true.
You know, and they're just like, you know what? And they're like, well, what's wrong with white flour and sugar and dairy? And they're like, oh my God, the minute I have that, it's like my body goes into a slump. Yeah, and my stomach, I get stomach pains and the skin reactions and all this sort of stuff.
I'm such a loser. I fall victim to all of that stuff.
Well, we all do, but then in that study, they switched them around, and then they said, okay, so we just want to measure everything that you're saying. So it's like, how do you feel after this drink? And they're like, well, just like I always say, it's like after the green smoothie, I feel amazing and awesome. And after I took that one, I felt awful and horrible. And they're measuring all this, and they're right. But then they said, we switched your drinks, right? So what you thought you were drinking was the good one, you were actually drinking the bad one, because you believed it was good. Your body listened to that and created that chemistry. I mean, that's how powerful we are. So where do we draw the line? You know, it's like, I think we work practically with where we're at with our beliefs. You know, I believe, and I've met many people living on light, living on prana, and they don't need food. I still have a belief that I need food, and so, but I really healthy because that's how I've been programmed. And I think when you're just starting out, you know,
you need help.
Really, at any stage, you know, food is a vibration, and you're putting that vibration in your body. But here's the thing: if you're doing celery juice and you're doing kale and you're putting all this amazing food in your body, but you're in a terrible mood all the time and you're in fear, there's no amount of kale or organic greens that can combat the chemistry that you're doing to your body from that state of being. And that's why people that, you know, survive on ice cream cones and cigarettes, but they have a great attitude, they outlive, you know, these people.
An angry vegan.
What's that?
They outlived the angry vegan.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I think, you know, with everything, it's like, what do I believe about this? And we should always do what we believe about it. Because if you believe that eating jelly donuts every day is bad for you, it's going to be bad for you. If you were programmed, Kelly, and if I was programmed that chocolate contains all the nutrients that your body needs, and this is how life is, you just have a chocolate bar a day, that's your only fuel, and it does all of this and it does all of that, guess what? If you believe that, your body would totally produce that from the chocolate.
Now, what about alcohol or marijuana, things that change your state of being? Would you say we should be able to override that as well, right? Or would you say
Yeah.
we should avoid that? Yeah, you should. I mean, same thing as food, right?
Yeah, many Sufi masters, you know, they have a big meal and then they have a cigar and a drink after, and here they're like, you know, pure, but they'll enjoy it. So I think it's our beliefs, you know.
It
Many
really
people,
is.
scientists, talking about red wine. The red wine helps open the brain, and Harvard and Stanford have released studies and all this sort of stuff. For me, I don't drink and I don't do like marijuana or anything like that. I don't like anything that kind of alters my center, and that's just me. But there's no judgment, you know. It's just like with ayahuasca, so popular right now. Ayahuasca.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. I had a question for that, but yes, go ahead.
Yeah, what's your question?
What about people using plant medicine to gain that higher state, to connect to the higher?
And again, just like the food, I think there's no judgment. It's like really what resonates for you, you know. I think one important thing to say about ayahuasca is, because I've seen what's going on in all these ayahuasca weekend parties and stuff, is that I personally feel that ayahuasca is not a doorway to God. It is not a doorway to higher consciousness. It's a window, and it can be a window. So it's like, wow, you have an experience.
That's
But
a good
guess what?
analogy.
You'll never sustain it by taking ayahuasca the rest of your life. Has to be a shift in consciousness. And so I think there's people are relating to it in different ways. And having said that, again, it's like whatever resonates with you. And you know, for a lot of people that have maybe only really 3D people that have only gone from work to home to the TV to bed and never considered another reality, and they go and they do an ayahuasca and they're like, whoa, there's more, you know. Who's to judge that? That's so beneficial. But I see a lot of people trying to, you know, achieve God consciousness. It just won't happen, but you can have realization. It's like there's no bypassing, you know, because the thing is, you take out the mind, right? The ancient proverbs say, you take out the mind of a human, you have a God, you know? So that means the only illusion of separation, the only impediment is in our mind. And that's, our mind is our imagination, our thoughts and feelings, our state of being. And so, you know, and then I guess you can get into, well, can ayahuasca help influence your state of being? Well, sure. And if that feels healthy, that's great. You know, we had a friend of ours, really enlightened guy, older guy, and you know, he did ayahuasca, and he had hurt his knee somehow on a fence, and he had this shaman show up as light, as a vision, and then he said the light just came in right to his knee, and his knee was healed. It's been healed ever since.
I heard
you know?
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did ayahuasca twice, and it was more like a doorway to hell. There was no enlighten anything. It was awful, and I just can't do it again. It was physically very taxing. It's very painful. So everyone had these wonderful stories about it. I'm like, no, that's definitely not for me. But
well, and you know what? I've heard more stories like what you have said, you know, more than the good ones. And so
really, okay.
Yeah, so a lot of people have had horrific experiences with it, and you know, some people say, "Oh, it's not the right shaman, or it's not the right ayahuasca, whatever." But yeah, I've never felt called to it, but I've also had, you know, awakenings in different ways, you know, and some of the people in India that I've met and doing some of these high kriyas, which is just an action, you know, they alter your state of being, and they alter it naturally. Spending time in the sun, you know, all this sort of stuff, and the fire, you know, to me, it's the most it should be pleasurable and the most simple, fun things, you know?
I agree. I agree. I love spending time in the sun. That nature that's the best healing I can ever do. I love it.
Yeah, yeah, it's so
Yep.
true.
Um, oh, I just lost my thought. You just said something I wanted to ask you about. No, I was going to ask you about past lives. So people have beliefs that also come from past lives, right? Could you talk about that in your last movie?
Yeah.
And so I know most people aren't going to go do a past life regression and they're not going to figure this out. So can you, without going into all that, people could do the gamma mindset or working
Well,
with.
yeah, and I just want to say, I don't do past life regression either, and I would never recommend it. I would never recommend digging and going backwards and looking, and I think that's probably an endless, Pandora's box. For me, doing some of the high vibrational kriyas, it it surfaced, it bubbled up, and it always came with great knowledge and value for this life. And so the beauty of this life is we're the combination of all of our past lives. And in a higher understanding, they're not past, it's not linear, it's all happening at once. And so, that was another thing that I realized. But even if you look at it linear and it's past and we're here now, all you really have to do if you want to look at anything is just where you're at now and your childhood. What did you learn in childhood? And why do you think you attracted your parents? What was your soul carrying when you came in? And that's what I saw. A lot of people say that it's a clean slate when we're born, but I feel that's so disempowering, because what about the babies that, are born with defects and born without an arm? It's just like it can't be a clean slate. And the only thing that makes sense to me, logical sense even. And here's the thing, for me, it was very useful and very valuable, but I didn't go looking. It just, if it presents it, it's that. But the present moment is all we need. That's really it.
Okay, so in the movie you talked about the guy who was very charismatic but he was very insecure about himself, right? So did that character just come to you when you were feeling those feelings, and that's how you knew about the past life?
Yeah. And the thing is, I have no attachment to past life. If somebody said, "Oh, that's just in your brain," I'd be like, "That's fine," because it's been useful for me. But when I realized it, Kelly, I knew it because I had that personal charge on it. And that memory, and I just knew it. You just know when you know. And so it was and so that past life surfaced, not to go digging or anything like that, but just because it was actually adding insight to what was going on in my life now. I could see that it's and like we talked about earlier, it's just there's a reason that we have fears. There's a reason, and most of us have a big fear around really embodying and shining and expressing who we really are.
Letting your light shine.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that. And so, and I don't even think we have to go digging. We just have to overcome it and just be willing to shine who we really are anyways.
And knowing that we did bring in this from past lives and not digging for the past life, you don't need to dig for it. You just need to know that it's in this present life. You have this feeling and you can let it go now, because that's not really who you are.
Exactly. Yeah, and you say it really well. It's just not who you are. And if it's not who you are, it's not real. It's an illusion. It's something that you learned. Doesn't matter even when or where, So, yeah.
I love it. I'm going to see if I have any questions I haven't asked. Is there anything that you want to highlight on that you feel free?
Well, you know what? I really like how we're talking about, because that's a big question. People talk about law of attraction and they're just like, but what about babies? And even when we talk about 0 to 6 and the sponge, and it's just it seems like we're victims. But again, I saw through my experience that, wow, we're so powerful that we actually, even though we're in a baby body, it's that soul or subconscious and soul is pretty much the same thing. So, I could see that I chose my parents and why I chose my parents and why I attracted, in the movie we talked about, I almost died when I was 1 and I was born jaundiced. These things don't just happen. There's a reason for it. And as my story unfolded, it made a lot of sense. And for whatever reason in my journey, and probably because I like to understand and know things, and for somebody else, you don't need to know, but I wanted to know. And I think maybe that's why the past life surfaced, because I wanted to know, like what's going on? Where did this come from? and who am I? And it's like, wow, I've lived before. And that's where, you know, most accepted spirituality right now really meets, where it's like, we know we're more than the body, and we know that we're going to live forever, no matter what, anyways. But then, you know, in a higher understanding of spirituality, you get into, but we create this unnecessary interruption on our path to unfolding our divinity called death. And, you know, and it's, what if it doesn't have to, what if you don't have to do that? Nothing wrong with it. It's a choice, you know, right. But I think it's important to know that it's a choice. And most of us still don't even think that that's a belief. That's just how things are.
I know. It drives me crazy when people think that aging is mandatory. Like, well, it's part of getting old. Getting old sucks. I'm like, no, you choose that.
Yeah, exactly.
I have to get old.
We've all been taught that. We see it in the media, and you know, and when we were kids, we asked questions and asked like what happened to grandma, or why is her skin wrinkly, and you know, and it's like, well, that happens when you get old. And, well,
yes.
You know, there's a download. Yeah. But if we were told, it's like, well, you know, that's one choice, but you know, look at your aunt here, you know, she's the same age, and look at her, she's radiating, you know, eternal youth. So, you know, you can have either, you know, then we'd be aging differently, you know.
But what if you have all the, because in the movie, they also talk about the people you're around makes an influence. So if you're in a culture of people that absolutely believe in aging, but you're the only one who doesn't, it's much more difficult, right? You got to strengthen numbers kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's a very strong influence, and a lot of masters go as far as saying, like even Paramahansa Nityananda and Nityananda, Paramahansa Yogananda and Nityananda, they say too. They say the truth is you're a God being, but at this present state of awakening, you are not stronger than the influences around you, and yet everyone that's ever broken out of any circumstance has had to go. I mean, our first movie, we showed Roger Bannister, right? He broke the
4-minute mile.
Yeah, 4-minute
or
mile.
under.
And that was a physical impossibility, you know, verified by many doctors of the time. They're just like, nobody's ever done it. Nobody ever will do it. Humans just can't do it. He did it. Then many people started doing it after him. So, but even though everybody around them believed they couldn't do it, this is the power within us. So yes, it would have been way easier for him if everybody was like, oh yeah, you can do this, you can do anything, you know? But he still listened to that voice within and overcame despite the influences. And that's how powerful we are. But it can be easier sometimes to, you know, like you say, go in nature. And the trees, they don't judge us. They're timeless. They recognize our spirit, you know. They don't look at our investment portfolio and think, you know. It's like, they just exude love, and we feel it. There's a vibration in nature that's very much in harmony with our source. And so we go into nature for a walk, we just feel better.
And dogs too. Dogs are very healing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we didn't talk about breath work. Leonard Orr did a lot of that in your movie. Can you talk about the importance of breathing?
Yeah. Well, you know, again, kind of like everything in my life and all the practices, I never do anything to like stir something up. It's like the goal is more relaxation, more peace, more joy, more happiness, more alignment with your spirit. But sometimes, you know, when you set those goals, getting there entails you're faced with the resistance that was always there, that is now has now come up. And so, you know, Esther Hicks Abraham, do you know her?
Yeah, Abraham Hicks.
Yeah,
of course.
And you know, she says that analogy in a very good way, that you get into your car, you've always been driving your car, but now all of a sudden you really, you know, create these rockets of desires or goals of where you want to go. I want to be ageless, or I want to be this, or I want to be more my true self. And she's like, and you get that car moving fast. And it looks like hell is breaking loose because all of these roadblocks you're running into. But she's like, that's just the resistance that's always been there. And if you're just numbed out, not really going for anything in your life, you're not really living. But you know, it might not feel like it's so much in your face, but you really become conscious and start going. And so that's same with breathing. You know, the goal is more relaxation, more peace, more joy. And you know, as soon as you're merging the inhale with the exhale, you're connected to your inner source right away. And a lot of times you just go to this blissful state and it's very beautiful. And other times you go and on the journey to that place, things come up, memories that you've suppressed. Things happen on the body, pop up on the body during breathing, like we depicted in the movie, like that happened.
Right.
And but the beauty is, as long as you keep breathing and you come to a completed energy cycle, which is what Leonard Orr's method really taught well, you always feel that bliss and that relaxation, the peace and the joy at the end of it anyways. And it's just like, sometimes, whatever comes up, it's not even always about analyzing it, or, some people like to, and sometimes there's value, but sometimes it's just, I don't know why that happened. And I had a smell of something smoking. I mean, we've had many people in the room when we were training on breathing people, and we had doctors in the room, and they were like 50, 60-ish, and they never breathed like this before, and they started breathing, and everybody almost got knocked out in the room because they were breathing out this horrible smell of anesthesia which was given to them or their mom when they were born, and that was transferred. So that's been in them for decades.
Yeah.
And it's like and not released. And so breathing is a very powerful way to release toxins, old emotions, and all that sort of stuff. And then if you get into like Patanjali, right? Patanjali Yoga, right? He's like the founder of yoga. He talks about seven limbs of yoga, and a lot of people think 7 steps, but it's actually 7 limbs. But then you get in, and one of them is breathing. But then you get into like transcendental meditation states, and that seems to embody the breath work. That seems to embody a lot of the other limbs and a lot of the, and it's just like when you're in that transcendental state, it's just like beliefs fall away, and it's like the shell falls away and you start to vibrate more in your core. So transcendental meditation is also a very powerful thing. And again, getting into like modalities, like it's not really a modality, but tools like IRT, interresonance technology. It's just like we're in a time, Chris Walton in our movie, shared this with me, that one of his Buddhist Zen monk friends years ago, he was in an ashram for 15 years in Japan or something. He came out and started doing weekend workshops, and he said, what used to take 5 years to kind of like evolve from a place in consciousness to where you want to go, used to take 5 years, is now taking a weekend. And that was over 10 years ago. He said, soon we'll be into the hours and then the minutes. And then of course, Gamma came, and it's just like, wow, and now I think, soon Gamma is going to be the long way. We have like IRT, and people are just aligning because consciousness is evolving, because we're evolving.
Oh, I guess don't go to what you're saying. I forget what I'm supposed to be asking. it's so true. It's so true. You get so, I'm just thinking like being on like a runner's high, when you're out there running, you get on that high, because when I used to run before my knees were really painful, I felt so like connected that way. I would just forget where I am. I wasn't running. I was just one with spirit. It was just the most amazing feeling. I loved it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. A lot of athletes get into the zone, and the zone is, in various degrees, you're really touching source energy,
Mm-hmm.
You're allowing that stream of wellness, of who you are, allowing that grand self to shine through. And this is the most powerful thing, right, Kelly, is that we said this earlier, but it's just so important, is that we already are everything we want to be, but we're covering it up. And so like a good example is like a diamond covered in mud that you found on the ground. It looks like just a lump of mud. And most of us go around thinking our whole lives, convinced that we're just a lump of mud. But when you start wiping off the mud, you're like, oh my God, we're magnificent. And this is all of us, And it's just like, it's there. It's just we're in such a habit, and a worldwide habit of resisting it, interfering with it.
You think that'll in our lifetime, well, we be able to achieve full, or at least close to it, abilities of our spiritual self.
Yeah, you know what? I feel like 2020 was a big, challenging year for, a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel, that's part of the veil coming down. And that's part of, I even think next year, we're going to see things that we never even imagined. It's just like, because the veil's coming down. And, people are just realizing it's like, even like with government, which is how I, met you, right? And cabal and all this, it's like people are waking up and they're like, hey, I don't feel like a guilty, worthless sinner anymore. Before, when we did, it's like, of course we needed punishment. Guilt demands punishment. We needed punishment. We needed control. We needed to be like slaves. We thought we did because we didn't know who we were. And so, but now we're waking up and this doesn't resonate with me. Why do we have a government that's more about control instead of,
Right.
they're supposed to be serving us. This is not supposed to be controlling us. Why do we have this? So people are questioning, and in the questioning and the awakening, as you know, old structures are collapsing fast.
They are. So are you and I going to live to be like, we're going to just grow old? No, we're never going to grow old. We're going to live until we feel like we want to leave this earth.
Well, I think that's possible, and it's going to be up to our moment-to-moment choices, our state of being. But yes, that is possible. And I feel that we're going into a time where like we're gonna actually, it's happening quick. And I feel we're gonna see like, whoa, it's like illness is gone. We don't need to be sick.
Soon, right?
And yeah, and when illness is gone, it's like, whoa, because what is aging? Aging is the effects of resisting our spirit. I mean, it's like when we resist our spirit, we're resisting our life force. When we're resisting our life force, things are going to fall into decay. We're creating dissonance instead of resonance. We're interfering. And if we didn't learn this interference, we would have never known anything about aging or death. It would just be flowing through us in full. We'd be creating and playing and connecting and having fun.
Do you work, so if you're going to work specifically on not aging, is that one thing you got to zero in on? Because that's a big one to change, right? For someone who's like, I don't want to age anymore.
I think there's a lot of beliefs around that, but I also feel let go of those beliefs. But the more we let go of any resistance in any form, like you can have I think you can have all the beliefs you want that it's possible to be ageless, but if you feel that you hate yourself, you're interfering with that flow, and it's unlikely you're going to end up being ageless, But having said that, like in our first movie, right, with Stork, that prisoner, in the maximum penitentiary,
right?
Nobody ever gave him that limiting belief that you only get 2 sets of teeth, and so he was getting in fights and getting his teeth knocked out all the time, and he had no idea that wasn't the experience of everyone else. And he was not in a high state of consciousness. I mean, he was a murderer, and he was causing havoc in the prison.
Yeah, he just didn't have that belief. I know, it's crazy. That's why you got to get quiet and just go within and like understand what are my limiting beliefs and be able to every day like really be aware of.
Well, and also too, I think listening, like I can feel it in you, and listening. We all have this guidance coming to us all the time. Like people sometimes say, it's like, well, how do we like get in touch with our spirit or our guidance? It's like it's always coming to us, right? But we have to listen. And a lot of times we disregard it because these great, fantastic thoughts come. KELLI, you don't have to age. KELLI, you're going to do amazing things in the world.
Drink green drinks, KELLI. Drink green drink.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and then we turn it off because it's just like, whoa, it's such a high vibrational frequency. And then we let our limiting beliefs or our rational thinking win out so many times. It's like, hey, we're meant to live for as long as we choose in perfect health and harmony, have an amazing life. And it's like, no, nobody does that. It's ridiculous. So, really listening to our hearts. And if we all listen to our hearts, I've never found a person who resonates with becoming weaker and more decrepit every year. People have varying opinions on on wrinkles and all that. Some people like them, don't like them, you know, whatever, doesn't matter. But nobody that I've met resonates with falling apart, becoming more decrepit each year.
No,
And
not
it just
fun.
doesn't, and why doesn't it feel good? Because, and this is the beauty, because it doesn't feel good because it's not in harmony with who we are. So then we have to surrender to what's in harmony with who we are. You know, if it was in harmony with who we are, and you know, that's the best choice for us, then there'd be no resistance. It would feel good. It's like, yeah, I love slowing down every year. I love going to the doctor more and the hospital more every year. Love it. If that was in harmony with us, we would be joyous.
I think you have those people who are aware and they know what they want to work on, because there's a pain point, right? You reach a certain pain point, you're like, okay, I can't deal with this anymore. And then there's a lot of people who are just kind of asleep at the wheel. Their job's not, or their life's not that bad. They may hate their job. It's not great, but they come home, they eat dinner, they do whatever, they get up and do it all over again the next day. And it seems like there's a lot of those people who are asleep that maybe there's nothing triggering them to want to change, to wake up.
I personally feel like, no judgment, but I personally feel that's a really sad place when it's kind of numb, because it's like the life unlived, but it's not traumatic enough, or like you said, triggering enough to do anything. But really, it feels like, for me, if that was me, it would feel like a waste of life, you know? But again, no judgment, because we're all on our soul's journey. And some of these people, you know, will be tomorrow, like, you know, calling you up. Kelly, do you know that you can live as long as you choose? Like, do you know, it's like, I read this article and every part of me lit up and I just know it to be true. I did more research and oh my God, there's no reason that our bodies should be aging. We're getting new cells every second, you know, all this stuff.
Yeah, and I think what you said a minute ago, being able to let it go. When you make it such a big deal, whatever the belief system you have is, then you're not letting it go. You're too focused on it. I got to get rid of this.
Yeah, and I think even, you know, we got to get rid of it is creating resistance, because really it's like neurologically speaking, how we get rid of it is we just, you know, if your belief system is you're not worthy, it's like, I'm worthy. But like you said, easier said than done. And that's just because we're out of practice, or we're actually really used to practicing that old belief, you know. But so it takes a little bit of conscious effort to catch yourself sometimes. It's like, whoa, I'm actually feeling a little sad today. Well, why am I feeling a little sad? It's like, well, I was triggered today at the office, and I guess I brought up an old pattern of like, yeah, I'm not really worthy. Everybody else is getting promoted, not me. You know, whatever the trigger is. And it's like, well, how do you want to feel? You know, how would it feel if you were feeling so worthy about yourself? And then, you know, sometimes we can just help each other with this, you know. And I love it when I have the support and somebody puts their hand on my back and just reminds me, you know, of who I am, and you're going to your next level. It's just so valuable. If we can do that for each other, and we all just innately know that it's like, yeah, I am worthy. And you start even with the possibility that you might be worthy, or the possibility that you might be good enough, or the possibility that you might be lovable. It's just like the whole body posture shifts, you know. And this is part of the changing too, you know. It's like when you're feeling really good, you know, you're usually not like this, you know, you're like this. And so you can start to use your body posture, and that triggers brain waves. Okay, you must be feeling pretty good, you know.
Yeah, true.
Even if you don't feel like dancing, and because usually you dance when you feel good, you know. So if you don't feel good and you start dancing, it's like your brain starts to think, okay, you must be doing okay, and let's produce dopamine. Let's produce all this. Let's start to trigger the new response. And yeah, so
it's true. Physical movement is so important. Getting your body going and getting excited, and put on your favorite song, whatever gets you going.
Yeah, and I think, you know, Kelly, I think if we're all in community, kind of on the same page, helping each other can be really much more easier, you know. And I think there's so much value in that, and I think that's going to be more of the future. We're going to be in these communities.
That's exciting.
You know? Yeah.
So tell us, what do you work with people one-on-one in groups? What is the work you do, and what's coming up for James Sinclair? What can we expect from you?
That's interesting, you know. So yes, I've done lots of coaching and worked with a lot of people, lots of seminars all around the world. But then, of course, I had to put all that on hold when I was doing the movie, 16 hours a day for 22
Oh,
months.
wow.
And
Oh, is that how long? Okay, 2 years to.
yeah, for 22 months. So that was for the for most of the post-production. And then years on and off, because like it would come up different ashrams. So we go and roll camera there. Then 6 months would go by, we go to another place. And that's kind of how the process went. But so what's next for me? I feel I'm in a place of almost the unknown, which is really exciting. I feel it's evolving. Is what we're looking at is doing, because I've become so busy, it's hard to do one-on-one now with people. It really is. And I very much have enjoyed it. But now we're looking at doing more groups where the idea of the group is, and it's very much less expensive for people too. And we feel we can get the same results, even though it's not one-on-one. But we want to do these events where you pop online, and the whole purpose of the event, it's not about just talking or chatting or education or fundamentals. It's like the whole purpose of each event, let's move the dial on harmonizing with our source energy. Let's, during the event and by the end of the event, let's just not learn tools to do it. Let's do it in the event. Let's open to more of our source. Let's have experiences, And so that's part of it. And then I think, we're looking at even we're talking about communities. So we're looking at other ways where we can use the environment to harmonize with our source, because we didn't know who we are. Everything that we did, all of our behavior, everything we created also reflects, our lower self. And so, for example, you go into a city, the city planners were not in harmony with their source. So they didn't know how to create streets and roads and everything is, you go in there, you feel a lot of dissonance and discord and a lot of stress, and people feel anxious. And so in ancient Vastu architecture, for example, which is written about, in 3,500 year young texts, they lived in structures that allowed nature in, just that simple, allowed the healing principles of the morning sun to come in, allowed, they weren't built beside cemeteries, like there's so much to it. But so we're looking, and we're just in the stage of considering, but we're looking at maybe developing some of these Vastu communities. A lot of them are very luxurious. They're not like living in your bus kind of thing.
Yeah, when you say community, what does that mean?
Well, I think it means so much to different people,
I don't know if you meant online or neighborhood, or I don't know what.
Yeah, but in this sense, neighborhood, an actual physical neighborhood community. And if you want to kind of check what I'm talking about, you can look at Vedic City in Iowa, or Mandala One Village, which is starting construction next year in Florida. And the buildings don't look that unconventional, but it's how they're situated and how they're designed and the mathematics of it. But they've been proven to just really, most people spend 90% indoors. And here's the thing, that is, I believe we're above every influence. We can become enlightened, beside a microwave tower, but it might be easier to just go in the country. That's why a lot of the masters go to the Himalayas,
Right.
Himalayas, as we say. And so I'm all about harmonizing. How can we make things easier for ourselves, because people go to workshops and they have incredible breakthroughs and results.
And they go home.
And then they go home back to their environment, which triggers their old state of being.
They're back to square one.
They go back to themselves a lot of times, And so you really have to be conscious. And when you can, take your major influences in life, like your friends, your community, and then also like where you're living. Most people, you just feel better when you walk in nature than you do when you walk downtown, for most people, and there's a reason for that. And so nature is much more in harmony. And again, just like everything we've talked about with our thoughts and feelings, we've done that physically. We created cities that are really dissonant, that interfere with our source, and the sidewalk that disconnects us from the earth, that naturally heals us when we walk on the earth barefoot, things like that.
So Sedona is a really spiritual state. What state do you live in?
Well, I live in the country right now. So I'm about an hour south of Calgary, Alberta, and with a view of the Rocky Mountains.
Beautiful. You love it?
Yes, but you know what? I feel like it's not quite my home, so I'm looking at some other locations.
Are you going to move to Ohio or Florida?
It's on my radar. It's on my radar.
Really? One of those two? Their new neighborhoods?
Possibly. I never thought ever Iowa would be a consideration.
It's
but
definitely not for me.
I went there, Kelly, and only two places in my life did I feel that outwardly peace that just pervades.
Ohio, wait, Ohio or Iowa?
Iowa.
Iowa. Oh, okay.
And it was Fairfield, Iowa. But you know, they're a third of the population of Fairfield. They're all meditators. You know, and when you get into Vedic City, like people are just living in harmony with themselves, and so there's a lot of
Iowa.
peace. There's a lot of abundance. Yeah, and you know, that's why I initially wrote it off, because I was like, oh, it's not tropical. They have winters, you know. But I've never forgotten that piece. We did a lot of filming there with the faculty of their university. For the first movie, and beautiful people.
How do you spell the city?
Pardon me?
What's the city in Iowa?
Vedic. So V like Victor, EDIC, Vedic City.
Oh, I never heard of that. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And what part of Florida? What was the city in Florida that's the new neighborhood?
Vero Beach.
All right. I don't know that either.
Yeah, Vero Beach, Florida.
There's a lot of beaches in Florida.
Yeah. This was ranked like one of the top places in the world for air quality.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
But you know, I could take a place like Fairfield, Iowa, and it's one of the most spiritual places in the world. Yeah, for sure in America. And you know, they even brought in like all these pandits, which people you know from India, like a 1,000 of them at least, and they chant 24/7. You know, they just chant all day long, and they rotate at night, and just to keep raising this vibration.
Wow.
And as a result, you know, Fairfield is now headquarters to a lot of innovative green technology companies, you know, forward-thinking people, you know, all this sort of stuff, and sustainable and green building, and you know, and that's what it's all about, you know. And even these Vastu homes, the Vastu architecture, it's like they copper shield the wiring so there's no EMFs. You know, or little EMFs bothering you, again, interfering with you, so that you're connected to the natural principles and healing flow of the universe. I mean, it's just really so simple.
You're setting yourself up.
But in our ignorance, we're like, you know, and lack, we're just like, we interfered with that. You know, so let's put a city there, and let's put a community, you know, neighborhood on top of a toxic waste dump or an old cemetery. All of these things, we didn't know, you know, just in our ignorance, we didn't know, and we couldn't feel the difference. So.
Right. And now, like people like you and I can. One thing I do love about the Bay Area, there's so much beauty here. I live in the Bay Area, California, and California is such a beautiful state. So I do take advantage of the nature.
Yeah. I love California. I've been there so much, spent so much time there.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay. Frozen?
Oh, there you are. No, you're
Okay.
all right. Well, I'm going to let you go. I've held you on the phone long enough, but so much fun talking to you. I loved it.
You too, Kelly. Yeah. I'm so glad we connected.
I am too. I would love to do a follow-up interview with you anytime, or there's so many more questions and so much more information we can cover.
Yeah. Let's do it. I'd love to do that with you.
Oh, it'll be fun. All right. Well, I'll be chatting with you soon.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay,
I'll talk to you later.
thanks. Bye.
Remember